Immigrant Janitor returned a lost wallet to its owner, unaware it held the key to his destiny. Miguel Fernandez's weathered hands trembled slightly as he picked up the sleek leather wallet from beneath the stairwell of Manhattan's Riverside Tower, where he had worked the night shift for the past 6 years. The loneliness of the early morning hours, when the elite inhabitants of the luxury building were either fast asleep or not yet returned from their glittering nightlife, had become his silent companion. The wallet felt expensive, heavy with the weight of someone else's fortune. Miguel's calloused fingers, dry from industrial cleaning chemicals, carefully opened it to find identification. A driver's license behind clear plastic revealed the face of a man with kind eyes that seemed vaguely familiar. David Harrington, Penthouse 3. Miguel knew the penthouse, of course. He cleaned the corridors on that floor, but never the residences themselves. Those were handled by day staff, people with better English and proper documentation. His breath caught. Inside was more cash than he had seen in one place since leaving Ecuador 3 years ago. Enough to cover the rent he was behind on. Enough to send extra to his mother for her medication. Enough to perhaps finally bring his daughter Lucia to join him in America. For one dangerous moment, Miguel's fingers lingered on the bills. The building was quiet except for the hum of the heating system pushing back against the February cold. No cameras in the service stairwell. No witnesses. He closed the wallet decisively and slipped it into his uniform pocket. "Not mine," he whispered to himself in Spanish, the language that still felt like home on his tongue. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. A man with nothing but honor still has everything. Honor was all Miguel had brought with him across the border. That and dreams of rebuilding the life that political persecution and poverty had stolen from his family. The night stretched on, each floor, each bathroom, each trash can a mechanical ritual his body performed, while his mind wandered through memories of Ecuador, his daughter's laughter, the scent of his wife's cooking before the illness took her, the small grocery they had owned before it was destroyed. By 6 a.m., Miguel's shift was complete. His supervisor, a gruff man named Jenkins, who barely acknowledged Miguel's existence beyond checking his cleaning log, would arrive in 30 minutes. The wallet pressed against Miguel's ribs beneath his uniform shirt, a constant reminder of the choice he had made. He took the service elevator to the penthouse level. These hallways were different. Plush carpeting instead of the utilitarian flooring of lower floors. Elegant sconces casting warm light instead of fluorescent tubes. The air itself seemed richer here, perfumed with expensive existence. Miguel stood before Penthouse 3, his heartbeat drumming in his ears. He had never knocked on a resident's door before. It was strictly against policy for maintenance staff to interact directly with residents unless specifically requested. His knuckles hovered inches from the polished mahogany. What if they called security? What if they accused him of stealing? What if this small act of honesty somehow led to questions about his documentation status? Before he could retreat, the door swung open. A man stood there, phone pressed to his ear, in the midst of an animated conversation. He wore an untucked dress shirt, expensive-looking pajama bottoms, and the harried expression of someone whose morning had started badly. "Yes, I've looked everywhere, Samantha. It's just gone, and with it all the man, David Harrington, Miguel presumed, stopped mid-sentence as he noticed Miguel standing there. Confusion crossed his face, followed by the slight hardening that Miguel had grown accustomed to when wealthy people suddenly found themselves face-to-face with the invisible people who maintained their lives. Miguel wordlessly extended the wallet. David's eyes widened. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone before abruptly ending the call. "My wallet." The words came out as a stunned whisper. "Where did you find it?" "Service stairs, sir," Miguel said, his accent thick but words clear. "Last night." David took the wallet, opening it immediately to inspect the contents. Miguel watched his face transition from suspicion to disbelief to something like wonder. "Everything's here. Everything." He looked up, truly seeing Miguel for perhaps the first time. "You had this all night?" Miguel nodded once, already stepping back. He had done what honor required. Now he needed to leave before questions arose, before this interaction extended beyond its purpose. "Wait," David called. "Please wait." But Miguel was already moving toward the service elevator, his footsteps quick on the plush carpet. He clocked out 3 minutes later, rushing past Jenkins without making eye contact, and stepped into the biting February morning air of New York City. 6 blocks from the luxury tower was Miguel's reality. A small room in a crowded apartment he shared with 2 other immigrant workers. The contrast between the 2 worlds made his shoulders sag with an exhaustion that sleep alone couldn't cure. He trudged up 4 flights of narrow stairs, each step a reminder of the distance between the life he had and the one he dreamed of providing for Lucia. Inside his room, barely large enough for a twin bed and a small dresser, Miguel peeled off his uniform. Tomorrow would be the same, and the day after, and after. An endless string of nights cleaning up after people whose lives were unimaginable to him, all for wages that barely kept his daughter fed and housed with his cousin's family back home. When sleep finally came, it brought dreams of Ecuador, of mountains and open skies instead of concrete and fluorescent lights. Miguel was jolted awake by pounding on his door. His roommate Carlos stood there looking confused. "There's a man," Carlos said in Spanish. "A rich American asking for you downstairs. He has a car with a driver." Fear immediately clenched Miguel's stomach. Immigration? Police? Had someone accused him of something after all? "What does he want?" Miguel asked, already reaching for his few important documents. His work permit, his daughter's birth certificate, the small photo of his late wife. Carlos shrugged. "He says he's from the building where you work. He says it's important." Miguel's pulse raced as he descended the stairs. Through the grimy glass of the building's entry door, he could see a sleek black car idling at the curb, the driver standing at attention beside it. And there, looking distinctly out of place in the rundown neighborhood, was David Harrington. The cold air hit Miguel's face as he cautiously opened the door. David turned, a smile breaking across his face when he spotted him. "Miguel," he said, "I'm glad I found you. Your supervisor was reluctant to share your information, but I can be persuasive." Miguel stood rigidly, uncertain what this unexpected visit meant. "I realized after you left that I never properly thanked you." David continued, seemingly oblivious to Miguel's discomfort. "What you did, returning my wallet with everything intact, it means more than you could possibly know." "Was my duty," Miguel said simply. David's expression softened. "Most people wouldn't see it that way. That wallet contained $15,000 in cash, Miguel." Miguel's eyes widened involuntarily. He had known there was money, but not that much. The sum represented years of his salary. "I had withdrawn it for a private art purchase," David explained. "But more importantly, it also contained something irreplaceable." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. "This?" Miguel looked at the photo of a young woman with a baby, the edges tattered from years of handling. "My late wife and my daughter," David said quietly. "The only copy I have of this particular photo. It was taken the day before my wife died unexpectedly. Heart condition no one knew about." Miguel felt the familiar ache of shared loss. "I am sorry," he said, his voice softening. He thought of the worn photo of his own wife that he kept tucked inside his Bible. David cleared his throat. "I'm not here just to thank you, Miguel. I'm here to offer you a job." "I have job," Miguel replied, confusion creasing his brow. "A different job. In my home." David gestured to the car. "I'd like you to be my household manager. My current one is retiring next month. The position comes with a significant salary increase and an apartment in the building." Miguel stood speechless, certain he had misunderstood. "You'd be responsible for overseeing the staff, managing schedules, handling some personal matters." David continued. "I need someone I can trust implicitly. Someone with integrity. But Miguel struggled to find the words. "I am Janitor. My English is perfectly adequate." David interrupted. "And you can learn whatever else you need to know. Character, Miguel, that's what matters to me. You can't teach that." Miguel's mind raced. A better job. An apartment in the building. Enough money to finally bring Lucia to America. "Why would you trust me?" he finally asked. "You don't know me." David's expression grew serious. "Because when you found that wallet, you had every reason to make a different choice. No one would have known, but you chose to do the right thing, at considerable personal risk, I imagine." He paused. "My father always said you can judge a man's character by what he does when no one is watching." Miguel felt the weight of the moment pressing on him, the sudden possibility of change after years of stagnation. "Think about it," David said, handing him a business card. "Call me when you decide." That night, Miguel couldn't sleep. The business card lay on his small bedside table, its embossed lettering catching the dim light from the street lamp outside his window. He thought of Lucia, now 9 years old, growing up without him. He thought of the promise he had made to his dying wife, that their daughter would have opportunities neither of them had dreamed possible. By morning, his decision was made. The following weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, training, and preparations. David had expedited everything, from the work visa adjustment to the furnishing of Miguel's new apartment, a modest but beautiful one-bedroom on the building's second floor, with windows that caught the morning sun. Miguel learned quickly. The household staff, initially skeptical of the janitor, suddenly promoted to manage them, gradually warmed to his respectful leadership and work ethic. David's 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, took an immediate liking to him, especially after learning he had a daughter her age still in Ecuador. "When is Lucia coming?" Sophie would ask regularly, having appointed herself the official welcoming committee. "Soon," Miguel would answer, his heart swelling at the thought. The immigration paperwork was moving forward, faster than seemed possible, with David's attorney handling everything. It was Sophie who first suggested the idea that would change everything yet again. "Daddy," she had said one evening while Miguel was reviewing the week's schedule with David in his study, "couldn't Lucia come to my school when she gets here?" "Miss Reynolds said we have scholarship spots." David had looked thoughtful, then smiled. "That's actually an excellent idea, Princess." He turned to Miguel. "Riverside Academy is one of the best schools in the city. Sophie loves it there. Would you be interested in applying for Lucia?" Miguel, overwhelmed by the possibility, could only nod. 2 months after finding the wallet, Miguel stood in the arrivals area at JFK Airport, his heart thundering in his chest. The flight from Quito had landed 20 minutes earlier. David had insisted on coming with him, bringing Sophie, who clutched a welcome sign decorated with butterflies and rainbows. "Nervous?" David asked, noticing Miguel adjusting his collar for the 5th time. "She was 6 when I left," Miguel said quietly. "What if she doesn't?" His words died as the doors opened and passengers began streaming through. And then there she was, small for her age, with her mother's eyes and his serious expression, clutching the hand of Miguel's cousin who had accompanied her on the journey. Miguel dropped to his knees as Lucia spotted him. For one terrible moment, she hesitated, the gap of 3 years stretching between them like an uncrossable chasm. "Papa?" Her voice was tiny, uncertain. "Mi corazón," he whispered, arms outstretched. She ran then, flinging herself into his embrace with such force that he nearly toppled backward. The scent of her hair, so like her mother's, unleashed a flood of emotions he'd held at bay for 3 long years. Tears streamed freely down his face as he held his daughter, vaguely aware of David discreetly guiding Sophie a few steps away to give them privacy. "I missed you every day," Miguel murmured into her hair in Spanish. "Every single day. I kept your picture under my pillow," she replied, her small fingers clutching the back of his neck. "I talked to you every night." Eventually, they pulled apart just enough for Miguel to introduce her to David and Sophie. The 2 girls sized each other up briefly before Sophie thrust her colorful sign forward. "I made this for you," she announced, "and I saved the desk next to mine at school." Lucia looked confused but offered a shy smile in return. That night, in the apartment that now truly felt like home, with Lucia's suitcase opened on the living room floor and her stuffed rabbit perched on the couch, Miguel sat at the small dining table across from David. I don't know how to thank you," Miguel said, watching the girls playing on the carpet with Sophie's collection of model horses. "All of this," David shook his head. "I've been thinking about this since the day you returned my wallet, Miguel. About why your act of honesty affected me so deeply." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "When Rebecca, my wife, died, I lost faith in many things. The randomness of it, the unfairness. I became cynical, focused only on accumulating wealth and success. I forgot what mattered." He glanced at Sophie, laughing as Lucia taught her how to say the colors of the horses in Spanish. "That photo you returned to me, it was taken on the happiest day of our lives. Seeing it again, knowing a complete stranger had chosen honesty over self-interest." David's voice grew rough with emotion. "It restored something I thought was gone forever." Miguel understood then that the wallet had indeed held keys, not just to his destiny, but to David's as well. 2 broken men, grieving lost wives, separated by circumstance and privilege, but connected by something more fundamental than either. "Rebecca would have loved this," David said softly, gesturing to their daughters playing together. "She believed deeply in the idea that we're all connected, that kindness creates ripples we can't foresee. My Carla believed the same," Miguel replied, the name of his wife feeling both painful and sweet on his tongue after so long. Outside the window, New York City sparkled with millions of lights, each representing lives and stories and connections yet to be made. Miguel thought about the long, lonely nights he had spent cleaning floors and emptying trash, feeling invisible. How one moment of integrity had led to this unimaginable new life. 6 months later, on a warm September morning, Miguel stood proudly at the gates of Riverside Academy, watching Lucia and Sophie walk into school together, their backpacks bobbing, their voices animated as they discussed their upcoming science project. His daughter, now fluent in English, had blossomed in ways he could never have imagined, her natural intelligence nurtured by opportunities he once thought impossible. They're quite the pair, aren't they? David commented, appearing beside him with coffee cups for them both. Miguel nodded, accepting the coffee gratefully. She wants to be a doctor now, he said with pride. Well, with her grades, I'd say that's entirely possible. They had fallen into an easy friendship, these two widowers from different worlds. David had learned Spanish. Miguel had become an indispensable part of not just David's household, but his life. Their shared experiences of loss and single fatherhood had formed bonds stronger than either had expected. I've been meaning to tell you, David said as they walked back toward the building. The foundation board approved your proposal. Full funding for the Immigrant Scholarship Program at the Academy. Miguel stopped walking, momentarily overwhelmed. The program had been his idea, a way to extend the opportunity Lucia had received to other immigrant children with potential but limited resources. 5 scholarships per year, David continued, with priority for families separated by economic necessity. Miguel found himself blinking back tears. Thank you, he said simply. David clasped his shoulder. It was your vision, Miguel. I just helped with the details. As they continued walking, Miguel thought about the long journey that had brought him here. The hardships, the loneliness, the struggle, and the wallet, of course. That simple moment of choice that had altered everything. His mother had been right all along. Honor might seem like an abstract luxury to a man with empty pockets, but it had turned out to be the most valuable thing he possessed. That evening, Miguel sat with Lucia on their small balcony, helping her with homework as the sun set over the Hudson River. His daughter looked up suddenly from her books. Are you happy here, Papa? She asked in Spanish, her eyes serious. Miguel considered the question, thinking of all they had gained, but also what they had left behind. Their homeland, their extended family, the grave of his wife that he could now afford to visit, but hadn't yet found the emotional strength to face. Yes, mi amor, he answered truthfully. But happiness is complicated, isn't it? It's possible to be happy and still miss what we've lost. Lucia nodded with a wisdom beyond her years. Like how I can love my new school but still miss the sound of the roosters in the morning at Tia Elena's house. Exactly like that. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Mama would like it here, I think. Especially the library. She always loved books. She would be so proud of you. Miguel said, his throat tightening. So proud of how brave you've been. And of you too, Papa. Lucia replied, leaning against his shoulder. For finding us a new home. As darkness fell and the city lights came on, Miguel reflected on the strange paths that destiny takes. How a lost wallet had led to a found life. How an act of honesty had opened doors he never knew existed. How connection could grow in the most unlikely soil. In the penthouse above them, David was hosting a charity event for his foundation. Later, Miguel would go up to ensure everything was running smoothly. Part of his responsibilities that no longer felt like work, but like purpose. Sophie would be there too, no doubt waiting to steal Lucia away for games in her room while the adults talked business. Two families, once strangers, now intertwined by circumstance, choice, and something that felt remarkably like fate. Miguel closed his eyes briefly, sending a silent thought of gratitude to Carla, wherever she was, for the strength she had given him, for the daughter they had created together, for the values that had guided him when he held that wallet in his hands and made the choice that honor demanded. Some might call it coincidence, that of all people, it was David Harrington's wallet he had found. That of all the lost items in the vast city of New York, it was that particular one that had crossed his path. But Miguel preferred to think of it differently, as if perhaps two angels, one named Carla and one named Rebecca, had orchestrated a moment of connection between the worlds they had left behind. A gentle nudge from beyond that had brought healing to the men they had loved and opportunities for the daughters they had never stopped watching over. A reminder that sometimes what seems lost is merely waiting to be found again in unexpected ways. One honest decision, two intertwined destinies, the ripples continuing outward, touching lives not yet encountered, creating possibilities not yet imagined. And it had all begun with a simple act of integrity, an immigrant janitor returning a lost wallet to its owner, unaware it held the key to his destiny.